whole Colorado situation that's very, very interesting to me because people got all in their feelings about the banning the Denver Post columnist Sean Keeler, and it is what it is. I think that's a different situation. Banning somebody, a columnist who you just disagree with them, talking. I think Mark Jones on the broadcast referenced that Deion felt that Sean was attacking his faith, which I can see how they got there if he has the term false prophet in print. But the idea is more that he's referring to Deion saying he's going to do all of these things, and we have yet to see that come to fruition. The idea of we're going to win championships here, win playoffs, whatever. But to me, the thing that I find interesting about the Colorado ecosystem, media-wise, is Deion is already very, very insulated. And I think that not a lot of people recognize this. So the way that things work post-game, or really in a lot of press conferences during the week or whoever, is that a lot of places there's just sort of scrums where anybody can ask, and then there's moderated press conferences. Well, all availability at Colorado is moderated, which means that school officials are calling on certain people. Okay, some of the post-practice availability with assistants and some players is a little bit more open at Colorado, but post-game and then the press conferences when Deion specifically is at the mic, it's all moderated. And anyone who's a national reporter who comes there can tell you that Colorado does not call on very many national people. I've been in Deion pressers like 6 or 7 times, and I think Dennis Dodd at CBS got called on once, maybe a couple times. I've gotten called on a couple times, but it's very, very rare. And I've asked Colorado about this. I was told we got to take care of our local reporters. The issue is that that's not how anybody else operates. And so Deion already is kind of existing in this sort of insulated world where he has reporters asking him how badly people need Aflac in their lives, which is like a crazy media atmosphere. That's just not something you're going to see anywhere. But Colorado is a fascinating place, and they're not opening themselves up to a lot of fair questioning. Deion usually, when he does lengthy sit-downs, it's not with people that have fair questions or are necessarily journalists. It's Shannon Sharp. It's RG3. It's guys that can make compelling content, or the Pivot Pod, or they can make compelling content, but, not really people that would call themselves journalists. Damien, I'm curious from the player's perspective on just media access in general. What is that experience like for you, and what kind of preparation does it look like before they put a microphone in front of you at Alabama?
Oh, man, that media training was extensive. Coach Saban had a lady that always would come in, and we would do a full camp seminar on media availability. Because, obviously, you in college, I don't think that you have a mandatory, because obviously they don't have contracts. So it's not like you have to speak to the media. Obviously, you're going to be in front of the media with how polarizing the game is. Everybody wants to talk to the guys now. So we did really, really extensive training, and Coach Saban was very strict about how he let players handle the media. Freshmen weren't allowed to talk to media. That's clearly not something that's implemented in today's game. Like I said, the seminar, there were a lot of different training mechanisms, a lot of different things. But, the best part about that is now I get to sit here and talk to you guys. Now I get to do stuff on TV because, I was prepared for it and I was ready. And now I have the ability to take those things that I was taught and, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and use them in a whole new career. So I think that it's super important to focus on training these guys to handle the media, because being on both sides of it as a player and now being somebody who is somewhat in the media now, it's a sneaky industry, and they find ways to trap you. They find ways to get things out of you that you might not necessarily want to say. And then they take it and they flip it in a way that you didn't mean it. And there's just so many things. There's so many ways for it to get convoluted. So I think that in a situation like this with Deion, we're just sitting here talking about, okay, you're so secluded, you're so selective, you're so this, I'm interested to see how are they training these guys with that being the case? Because again, when these guys go to the NFL, they have mandatory media availability. They're not going to be okay, well, we're just doing Patriots in-house reporters, or we're just doing you're doing national media at the national level. So I'm interested to see how these guys are getting trained. I mean, obviously we see how these players get treated at Colorado. I mean, these guys are superstars. They got the Maybachs, they got the cyber trucks, they got the chains, the Richard Milles, they got it all. But I want to know, are they being trained to handle the media? I mean, that's what we're talking about. Deion clearly, I wouldn't say is setting a perfect example of how to deal with the media. So I just want to know what's the training regimen? How are these guys getting taught to handle the media?
What's the one principle in those that you remember hearing the most?
You control the narrative. No matter what the question is, no matter what the subject is, you always own and control the narrative. So whatever you want to be out there, you put that out there. Again, you can ask me, is the sky blue? But if we're sitting here and I have a message about this team needs to get better at this, or this team needs to do this, that is the narrative. And Coach Saban did a great job of that, because there were a lot of times where, especially with the Jalen and the Tua situation would come up. Granted, everybody saw how he handled that situation with Maria Taylor. That wasn't the best. He apologized. That all got resolved, right? But Coach Saban you're right. But I'm not going to, so quit asking. But, Coach Saban did a very good job of always controlling the narrative. And we were just taught that, what your message is, you are your own message. You are your own brand. Control that. And so getting control of that at an early age and learning that, you're not backed into a corner of, well, I just got this question and I really don't want to answer it because I don't like the way it was framed, but then I feel obligated. So I just give an answer. And the next thing I know, I've got a headline out there with my name attached to it saying something that I didn't want to say, conveying a message that I didn't want to convey. And now I've got a target on my back because I look like I was talking out of my ass, You want to control your narrative. You want to control your message. So that was the biggest thing for me. And I think that that's important, especially with these guys inching closer and closer to being professional athletes. It's very important to understand, yes, you are your own brand. You are your own message. Just control it. And no matter what the situation is, always present your message.
Let me stand up for media there real quick. I don't think twists and change certain narratives and stuff like that.
Well, I think
come on, Chris. I lived it, Chris. You can't tell me otherwise.
There is a line between professionals and not professionals in the media.
Yes,
and I think if you want to be a good reporter, part of that is always putting things in the right context. But there's aggregators, there's fan sites, there's people that are going to that aren't serious about doing journalism, and so I think. That definitely happens, and I think there's a lot of people. And
I didn't mean for that to come off as that is the objective.
No, that's totally fine.
Because again, listen, I'm the media now. So I'm not, and I don't want to be that guy that whenever I'm talking to guys, I don't want to be seen as a guy who's looked at as he's always baiting for me to say something negative, or he's baiting for me to talk bad about my opponents, or he's baiting on me to give information that we're not really disclosing right now. You don't want to be that guy. And there are a ton of great people in the industry, there are a ton of people who will lead you down that direction.
Yeah, and I think to bring it back, I think that's a lot of what Deion Sanders feels. He himself has been a part of the media for a very long time. He has been in that spotlight for forever. So he just comes into this job in a completely different world than most college football coaches do. And so that I've told this story before, but I went to cover when his name was thrown around for the Florida State job back when he was an assistant coach at a high school here in Texas. And I went to the game, watched the game, and he just kind of walked off the field with people afterward. And I said, hey, Deion, reporters want to ask you a couple questions. And he said, no, don't talk to you. Only talk to the documentary crew that I've got following me here. Nobody else has that. Nobody else in this profession really has that going on. So he's his own unique thing. And David, a lot of people talk about Deion in the media. And so you, as someone who has been there a lot, that perspective on how they're running things, it is good to know that it is different than the way everybody else is running it. That's why it creates kind of a weird situation.
Yeah, very much so. And it's hard to obviously, build relationships that way either. I mean, Georgia puts a ton of players out after every game and they just set them up on risers and they just talk and, it seems like it goes pretty well. Anyway,